Welcome everybody to Shanthan Jetty Art. This is Shanthan Jetty. I'm doing something a little bit different today. I wanted to, I know I do a lot of streams where I chat and I paint at the same time, which is, I really enjoy and I'm not stopping that anytime soon. They'll have to carry me out. But I wanted to take a second here to really show you what I do in high definition. Because I think a lot of times, no matter the best of the streams I can get, are not going to show you what's happening on the paper in HD, where you can see the paper texture, you can see what Nosfero is, and why I enjoy working in this way so much and why I enjoy sharing it with all of you. So, hopefully, this will be enjoyable for you guys to see, and I'm just going to try to do some of this stuff mixed in with the other stuff I'm doing, because people ask about the paints I use, they ask about the process. But as somebody who grew up really enjoying watching Bob Ross's videos on PBS, not PBS, but not VHS, I've always enjoyed the sound of painting, and I've enjoyed the look of painting, of being right on that canvas or right on that paper. And it just dawned on me, when I've been doing these streams that you guys have been so great about showing up, and, when I'm on other channels, that it might also be nice to have some high def videos that sort of show you what it's like when I'm working. And how you can see the paper texture and how you can see the water that starts to slowly absorb into the paper as I work. Because there's really nothing like getting this opportunity in terms of high resolution to see somebody doing this type of work. And, as I was talking the other night with my friend Gabe, one of the things about it is that it's like you get a fly on the wall, perspective of how we work, and that's what makes this whole thing so fun. That's what makes Comicsgate so fun. So I wanted to make sure that you guys get a look at the detailed view of how I'm putting this stuff together. And I've been painting in gouache, or I should say opaque watercolor, since I discovered them in college. It wasn't for a class or anything like that. It wasn't somebody said, hey, this is how you do it, here's the technique. There was this thing called color that I was terrible at. I was doing mainly pen and ink stuff. Because I wanted to be, obviously a comic artist. That was my objective. And color was something that was, alien to me. It wasn't something I was particularly good at. And it wasn't something I ever thought I would be good at, let alone painting. And I suddenly, started to feel that need to show the creatures and all of the things that I was interested in. And, my pre-existing passion for special effects, makeups, and monsters and things like that. I wanted to do illustrations where I could design characters and show people what they looked like. And, sometimes when we're working, we find something or we discover something for the first time that we've never really done before, or we've maybe felt that there was a distance between us and it, like in terms of my brain just can't go there. And then all of a sudden we break through a wall and it becomes a part of our life that we can't imagine living without. And for me, that was how it felt when I first discovered comics, and when I first understood how painting could be done in a way to where I felt this connection with it. It just became this huge part of my process, my experience of working. And for any of you guys who are, and thank you so much for everyone who's backing Nosfero. But for those of you guys who are like, painted comics, I don't know, man, maybe I like Alex Ross, or maybe I like, Kent Williams, or I like, any number of artists who've worked in paint. What I'm really hoping to do with this book is create something that makes you kind of go, hey, this brings something positive to me. Both in the story and the writing, but hopefully it gives you some kind of, personal relationship. Hey, I know that Shanth guy. I backed Nosfero. And it puts you in contact with that part of you that, probably goes back to the cave paintings, that appreciates this simple act of taking pigments that have been mixed up by the folks who make the paint, mixed in with binders, mixed in with opacifiers, things to give it the coating power so that you can put the color down, and takes you back to this kind of early, historical time in human history where this is one of the ways in which we made our stuff. And albeit with modern tools, there's something that is very kind of primal and I find really enjoyable. Most of us have our relationships with painting, start off on the wrong foot with, fine art painting and looking at things and being told why you should think they're great when you don't think that they're great. There's this kind of aesthetic distance, but I should say also there's this cultural distance that you don't feel when you look at the Sistine Chapel, and you don't feel when you look at, high art painting as opposed to fine art painting, which is works that served a function or had a form or function to them, that through the sheer mastery of the artist working on it, they became something that was of cultural significance. But they didn't start out trying to be culturally significant. Well, this isn't really going to be, a high art experience, but it's going to be a pulp art experience. And it's going to be one that I hope makes you sort of feel some kind of rich connection with the type of history that we have, whether it's for storytelling and mythology and for fantasy. And that when you're looking at the paper and you see that crackling of the pigment across the surface right there, that you realize that this is for you. This isn't something that's for the chin strokers. This isn't a connoisseur's artwork. This is the artwork for those of us who love pulp, we love storytelling, and all of us, have this shared history of making, of making and experiencing work that goes back at the very least 40,000 years ago. And I'm sure it's a lot further back. And if we can, in any way, if I can, it's the same thing when I listen to a concert violinist. It's the same thing when I listen to anybody play music live. And I know some of you guys probably do yourselves, and you may have kids who play music live or dance or sing. There's something that you get from that human interaction, that I think can be really rewarding and can be really good for us to have. And so these paintings, these things that I'm making, that you're supporting, you get to enjoy them. That's the main thing, is that you get to enjoy this process of knowing that you backed this comic book, you support this channel, you subscribe to this channel, you like this channel, and this is, as a result, artwork that is made to be something that you can connect with and know that you're a part of it. Because this is our history. This is our shared human history, is aesthetics. Aesthetics are not for a small select group of people. Painting and art is not. It's actually for everybody. Anti-aesthetics are the thing that's made for a small group of people. So when I'm looking at Frank Frazetta's work or Howard Pyle's work or N.C. Wyeth's work, the thing that strikes me is that work is there for me to experience it and for me to understand it. It's not something that's there for me to, be confronted by or, deliberately confused by. And that's not what Nosfero is. Nosfero is, every bit of pop culture that we love, all the great things about fantasy, all the things that we love about, any kind of imaginative fiction, whether they're video games or they're comic books or they're movies, it doesn't matter. And it's bringing them and expressing them in a way that acknowledges where we are today with all the cool, amazing advancements in creative technology, but then also acknowledging where we come from as, a species. We love to imagine, we love to dream, we love to see our common humanity reflected in things, but it really brings it home, and you really get the sense when you see this stuff that this is being done by hand, and it's no different than when you are, you know, doing any other process, like whether you're doing the dishes or you're, you know, taking out the trash or whatever it is that you do about your day, cooking. It's the same thing. These are my ingredients, and this is where I prepare it for you guys. You can just take a look at the color shifting that happens as the paint dries. This little crackling that happens as pigments mix in together. This really, this fascinating thing to me after all these years of doing it, after all these years of painting, and it really hasn't been the hugest part of my art experience. I've done a lot of digital work and obviously video editing and things like that. But after all this time of doing it, it still amazes me to watch the air affect the pigment, to watch the values shift, to watch how you can create entire worlds out of what is essentially, you know, ground up pigment, water, and paper. It's and the air, you know, when we're painting, the air is a part of it. You know, the way that the air affects the drying of the paint. You watch it and it shifts the color. And let me make sure you guys can see this here, because I want you guys to make sure you have the best seat in the house. So I can go in here and say, all right, I've got a table right here that this character is sitting at. And you were here when I was painting this. When you get this book, you'll remember you were here when we were working on this thing together. When we watched that table, we watched it sort of emerge from the paper. Let's put a little bit of blue. I love, you know, this color blue, this sort of cerulean, bright blue hue. I've always loved it. It's something that you'll see a lot in my work. Even when I'm pushing my color palette into different, you know, territory as I am on this page, just to make the flashback origin sequence of Nosfero pop. I want to put in a little bit of blue, and I want to put in a little bit of contrast into these things. So that means letting things happen, like dropping in a nice little bright green in there. If you guys can see that there. Dropping in a little bit of a nice bright green in there, and then letting the water kind of break that apart and have it take on a life of its own. And that's what the paint sort of does. And whether you're doing it on a cave wall or whatever surface you're using, that's what you can get out of it. Oh, I think a truck was passing by. And I'll show you a little example of that on a larger scale, because we're hanging out here. So No one can stop us from whatever we want to do with this painting. If I want to do something crazy like that in there, I can always go back in and adjust it if I need to, but it's good for us to kind of see what that focus, what the pigment's doing on the surface of that paper. Makes those little, almost like snowflake crystal, breaks that happen in it. And that's what sort of creates that aesthetic that's unique to traditional media, but I would say from one traditional artist to another, depending on what media we use and what our approach is to what we do. No, just like with digital artwork, there's no two that's going to be, entirely the same. There we go. And now I'll drop in some darks, and all of a sudden something starts to have a little bit more structure to it. There we go. So now I'm going to take a little bit of black, move it across, fill in that area right there. And then what I'll do is grab a little bit of orange or a little bit of red, and I'll drop it in there. And that little breaking of that warm note right in there will help to create this sense of the lighting happening on the surface of that object. It's going to give it a more sculptural sort of sense, and I can carry that into some of the other parts of this object to give it its dimension. There we go. And with all of this stuff, when I'm working on it, the thing I want you to sort of bear in mind is we're doing, we're working on the storytelling. We're bringing this stuff out in terms of making the narrative elements of it work. But ultimately, when you're reading it, you may find yourself, after watching enough of these videos and watching us work, you may remember the times of when we were working on this stuff together. And that's the cool thing for me. That's the great thing for me. And so the thing I want to close with, to show you guys, as you guys, know what these pages look like from either my Twitter feed or from watching these YouTube videos, where you can really see the detail and you can see what this book is and what it's going to be and the intensity of detail that's going to go into it when it's all said and done. That it starts like this. It starts with this sheet of paper right here and this blank piece of paper with whatever texture it already has on it. And then from this texture of this paper, we get things like this: pigment, paper, and with your support and with Comicsgate's support, we're going to try to make something that's magical, dramatic, and rich in terms of how the storytelling comes together. So this is Shanthan Jetty. This is Shanthan Jetty Art. Thank you guys so much for all of your support on Nosfero. There'll be more live streams coming soon, and you guys take care and have a great day. Thank you.